Why don't you let me sell this thing?
But he's dead, Tommy. And now what? I was supposed to let his trophy wife?
Landman Season 3. Episode 1 doesn't open with explosions or speeches. It opens with a feeling. A heavy one. The kind that settles over West Texas before the sun even comes up. Oil fields don't wake up here. They're already alive, pumping, groaning, pulling black money out of the ground like the land owes somebody a debt. And this morning, the ground feels restless, like it knows the empire built on top of it is about to be tested again. Tommy Norris stands alone at the edge of an MTech site as the sky burns orange behind the rigs. Flare stacks flicker like warning lights. Season 2 ended with MTech barely surviving cartel money, internal fractures, and power plays that almost tore it apart. Season 3 begins with the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Survival wasn't the win. It was just a pause, a breath before the next fight. And this one won't be loud. It'll be precise. MTech is still standing, but it's wounded. Regulators are watching. Former partners vanished overnight. Trust inside the company feels thinner than the steel they drill through. The expansion plan that was supposed to crown them kings of the basin is back, but it looks different now. No press releases, no victory laps, just quiet land grabs, shell companies stacked like poker chips, and money moving through routes that don't leave a trail. This isn't growth for glory. This is growth for survival. Inside headquarters, the air feels colder than the AC can explain. Cammy Miller sits at the head of the table again, but her confidence has sharp edges now. She kept MTech alive when it should have folded, and that win came with scars. When she talks about expansion, she doesn't say opportunity. She says control. Control of land, control of flow, control of who gets left standing when the dust settles. For Cammy, this isn't about legacy anymore. It's about not losing what she already clawed back. Tommy listens, arms crossed, eyes locked on the map spread across the table. New leases cut north like open wounds across West Texas. On paper, it all looks clean, legal, perfectly timed. And that's what bothers him most. Tommy knows every acre out here already belongs to someone. If it's suddenly available, it's because somebody was pressured, scared, or pushed aside. Clean maps usually hide dirty stories. Out on the rigs, Cooper feels the shift without anyone explaining it. The pumps still run, the crews still show up, but the jokes are gone. Conversations stop when unfamiliar trucks slow roll past the site. Cooper's survived fire, blood, and lawsuits, but this isn't chaos. This is tension, the kind that builds quietly before something breaks. MTech's next move could lock him into the machine forever, or strip away the independence he fought for. Back home, the silence says more than any argument. Inslee isn't blind anymore. She sees how Tommy leaves before sunrise and comes back after dark. Phone buzzing, answers short. Angela notices it too. She's seen this version of him before. When the plays get bigger, the walls go up, and every time the family pays a price, no balance sheet ever shows. By the time the sun clears the horizon, one truth hangs heavy over West Texas. Season 3 isn't about whether MTech expands. It's about who controls the expansion, who gets sacrificed, and how much family survives when power becomes more important than blood. Because out here, the land never forgets, and it always collects what it's owed. The morning doesn't bring relief. It brings movement, trucks rolling before daylight, phones lighting up without names attached, and a quiet understanding across West Texas that MTech is back in motion. Not loud, not proud, just dangerous. Tommy drives the back roads instead of the highway, dust trailing behind his truck like a warning sign. Every mile out here tells a story if you know how to read it. Fresh tire marks near old fences, new locks on gates that used to hang open, land changing hands without announcements. This expansion isn't spreading outward, it's tightening inward, like a fist closing around the basin. At one of the northern lease blocks, Tommy stops and steps out. The rigs nearby keep pumping, but this land is still untouched. Quiet, too quiet. He studies the markers, the survey flags, the numbers burned into wooden stakes. On paper, this acreage is clean, privately owned, ready to sell. In reality, it's a choke point. Whoever controls this strip controls what moves north and what gets buried before it ever reaches market. Tommy knows exactly why Cammy wants it. Back at headquarters, Cammy isn't waiting around. She's already 3 calls deep, voice calm, words sharp. Investors want reassurance. Lawyers want distance. Regulators want paperwork. And Cammy gives each of them just enough truth to keep them satisfied and just enough silence to keep her options open. She learned last season that power doesn't come from shouting. It comes from being the last one standing when everyone else runs out of moves. Nathan, the company lawyer, watches her work and feels the ground shifting under his feet. He knows about the quiet purchases, the personal accounts, the leases that don't carry the MTech name. He also knows saying it out loud could burn the whole place down. Loyalty used to be simple here. Now it feels like a gamble every time someone opens their mouth. Out on the rigs, Cooper gets the call he's been expecting. Not from MTech, from a broker he trusts. Short message, no greeting, just facts. Northern leases moving fast, prices doubling, pressure tactics. Cooper stares out at the pumps thumping steady against the horizon. This isn't normal market behavior. This is someone forcing the board. And in this game, the people who get forced usually lose everything. He meets Tommy later that afternoon at the edge of a site that doesn't officially exist yet. No logos, no paperwork posted, just two men standing on dirt that could decide the future of an empire. Tommy doesn't waste words. He lays it out plain. These small pieces matter more than the big ones. Control the narrow paths, and nobody can flood the market without your say-so. Cooper listens, jaw tight. He understands the play. He also understands the risk. Crossing Cammy isn't like crossing an enemy. It's like crossing gravity. Eventually, it pulls you down. At the house, Anansley feels it before she hears it. The phone calls that stop when she walks into the room. Angela's quiet focus as she scrolls through old contacts she swore she'd never need again. This isn't just business bleeding into family anymore. This is family being positioned inside a war they didn't ask for. Anansley doesn't want explanations. She wants honesty, and she's tired of waiting for it. As night settles over the basin, the first real sign of trouble appears. A landowner on the edge of the northern block backs out. No negotiation, no counteroffer. Just fear. Tommy gets the call late. The man's voice shakes as he explains. Someone came by after dark, polite, smiling, made promises that didn't sound optional. Tommy thanks him, hangs up, and sits in silence longer than he should, because now it's clear. This expansion isn't just strategy, it's pressure. Someone else wants this land bad enough to scare people off it, and whoever that is, they're not playing by corporate rules. They're playing by territory. Tommy steps outside and looks toward the distant flare stacks burning against the night sky. MTech's next move will decide everything, not just profit, not just power, but who walks away clean, and who gets crushed under the weight of an empire that never learned when to stop. Night doesn't slow anything down, it just hides it better. By the time the sun comes up, the damage is already done. Rumors move faster than trucks on the highway, and by mid-morning, everyone who matters knows one thing. Someone is leaning hard on landowners north of MTech's line. Tommy sits in his truck outside a diner he doesn't usually stop at, coffee going cold in the cup holder. He watches two men in suits step out of a black SUV across the road. They don't look local, too clean, too calm. They walk with the confidence of people who know the land will move for them. Tommy doesn't need names to recognize the play. He's seen this kind of pressure before, back when investors came with muscle and smiles meant threats, back when money wasn't the most dangerous thing in the room. Inside MTech, the boardroom feels smaller than it should. Cammy takes her seat like nothing is wrong, but the questions come fast. Delays, pullouts, price spikes that make no sense. She doesn't panic. She reframes, calls it market resistance, says MTech anticipated turbulence, says they're adjusting, but behind her steady tone, something sharp flickers. She knows someone else is pushing the same land, and she knows Tommy's fingerprints might already be on it. After the meeting, she corners Nathan in the hallway. Quiet, direct. Find out what Tommy's buying. Off the books. Nathan hesitates, then nods. This is the moment loyalty stops being a feeling and starts being a liability. Out on the patch, Cooper hears about the diner, the suits, the SUV, the pressure on landowners. He doesn't ask who's behind it. He already knows. Names don't matter when the method is this familiar. What matters is timing. And timing says this is about to turn ugly. He checks in with his crew, keeps them close, tells them not to talk to anyone they don't recognize. The rigs keep pumping, but everyone's shoulders are tight. At home, Annesley doesn't wait anymore. She confronts Tommy that night, straight on. No accusations, just facts. Landowners are scared. Cammy's circling. People are watching the house. Tommy tries to deflect, but she doesn't let him. She's not asking for protection, she's asking for the truth. And when he finally gives it to her, even in pieces, it lands heavy. Angela listens from the doorway, arms crossed, reading every pause, every half sentence. She knows what this turns into if it keeps going this way. Pressure from outside, silence inside. That's how families fracture. That's how men end up making desperate decisions alone. The call comes late. A landowner, voice shaking, windows broken, a message left behind. Nothing written down, just words said slowly, clearly. Back out, or it gets worse. Tommy grips the phone hard enough to hurt. This isn't negotiation anymore. This is intimidation. And intimidation always escalates. He drives out there anyway. Night air thick with dust and fear. He sees the damage for himself. Boards over glass, lights left off. A family scared into silence. Tommy promises protection, but the words feel thin even as he says them. He knows how these stories usually end. And he knows promises don't stop men who think the land belongs to them. When he gets back, Cammy's already heard. Not the details, just enough. She calls him directly. Her voice is calm, but there's steel underneath it. "This is getting messy," she says. "If you're involved, you're putting all of us at risk." Tommy doesn't deny it. He doesn't confirm it either. He just says, "This isn't business anymore." Silence stretches on the line before Cammy responds. "Then choose carefully," she says. Because once this crosses a certain line, there's no walking it back. Tommy hangs up and stares at the dark. Somewhere out there, men are deciding who gets pushed next. Somewhere else, deals are being signed without ink. And standing between it all is an empire trying to grow while cracks spread through its foundation. The land is being claimed, quietly, violently, and whoever controls it next won't do it by accident. The pressure finally breaks the surface, not with noise but with speed. Moves stack on top of moves, and suddenly everyone's rushing, afraid to be the last one caught standing still. The emergency board meeting hits before noon. No warning, no agenda sent out, just a message that says attendance is mandatory. When Tommy walks into the room, the temperature drops. Cammy is already seated, hands folded, eyes calm in a way that doesn't feel natural. The screen behind her lights up with numbers, maps, timelines, expansion routes, delays, risk projections. And then, the turn. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. She talks about unauthorized activity, about conflicts of interest, about protecting the company from internal risk. Every word is polished, legal, careful. Tommy hears his name without hearing it said. When Cammy finally looks at him, it's not anger, it's calculation. Tommy answers without flinching. He talks about shell companies linked to intimidation, about landowners being threatened, about growth that comes with blood on it. Some board members shift uncomfortably, others stare straight ahead. They don't want truth, they want safety. And safety, right now, sounds like distance from Tommy. The vote doesn't happen yet, but the message lands hard. Cammy isn't backing down. She's boxing him in, limiting access, freezing approvals, cutting off the quiet paths he's been using to keep control. When the meeting ends, Tommy knows one thing for sure. The clock just sped up. Outside, Cooper gets word almost immediately. Access restricted, equipment approvals delayed, crews told to stand by. That's how pressure works at this level. You don't shut things down. You slow them until people panic. Cooper doesn't panic. He adapts. He reroutes crews, keeps work moving where it can, quietly, off the main channels. He's learned that survival on the patch isn't about permission. It's about momentum. Annesley feels the shift too. Calls not returned. Tension thick enough to taste. She digs where she can. Talks to people who still trust her name. What she hears isn't comforting. Someone else is circling closer now. Not just landowners, not just brokers. Muscle. The kind that doesn't show up unless things are about to get physical. Angela finally steps fully back into the game. Old contacts. Old favors. She starts pulling threads that were never meant to be touched again. And what comes back is worse than expected. Financial trails, front companies, patterns that all point the same direction. This expansion isn't just being contested, it's being enforced. The breaking point comes just after sunset. Cooper's phone rings. One of the rigs on the edge of the unofficial lease line goes dark. Not mechanical, intentional. Power cut. A warning. By the time Tommy arrives, trucks are already pulling away in the distance. No confrontation, no faces, just a message written into silence. Tommy stands there in the fading light, staring at a rig that should be running. He doesn't need confirmation anymore. This has crossed into territory where someone wants fear to do the talking, and fear doesn't negotiate. He makes the call that night, not to Cammy, not to lawyers, to family, to the few people he still trusts without conditions. The plan changes. No more half measures, no more trying to keep everyone comfortable. If they're going to survive this, they do it together, out in the open, ready for impact. As darkness settles over West Texas, flare stacks burn steady against the sky. The pumps slow, then catch again, like the land itself holding its breath. MTech's next move isn't about expansion anymore. It's about resistance. And whatever comes next won't stay hidden for long. The night stretches long, but nobody sleeps. Not on the rigs, not in the houses lit by porch lights that stay on until morning, and definitely not inside MTech. By the time dawn creeps back over West Texas, everyone involved understands one thing. The line has been crossed. Quiet games are over. Tommy watches the sunrise from his truck, parked on high ground overlooking a cluster of pumps that never stopped running. That alone tells him something. Fear slowed some things down, but it didn't shut everything off. The land is still producing. The people still showing up. That matters, because empires don't fall when pressure hits. They fall when the people holding them together decide it's not worth it anymore. Cammy makes her move early. A formal notice goes out. Tommy's authority is suspended pending internal review. Clean language, sharp meaning. It's the kind of move that looks responsible on paper and brutal in real life. If this were just business, it might have worked. But business stopped being the whole story a while ago. Tommy doesn't fight it publicly. He doesn't storm offices or make calls he can't take back. Instead, he keeps moving. Quiet meetings, early mornings, late nights. Cooper keeps the rigs running where he can, proving something important to everyone watching. MTech's power doesn't only live in boardrooms. It lives in dirt, sweat, and people who know how to survive when the rules change. Ann Inslee sees it clearly now. This isn't about control versus chaos. It's about who protects who when things get ugly. She steps into conversations her younger self would have avoided, asks questions that make people uncomfortable, and earns respect the hard way. Not because of her name, but because she doesn't flinch. Angela's work finally pays off. The threads she pulled don't just point to intimidation. They point to exposure, the kind that makes powerful people nervous, the kind that turns confidence into hesitation. Suddenly, the pressure eases just enough to notice it was there. Trucks disappear. Calls stop coming. Silence returns, but this time it feels earned. Cammy feels the shift too. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't admit mistakes. But her tone changes. Meetings soften, timelines stretch, expansion talk gets careful again, controlled, managed, not abandoned, but restrained. She calls Tommy one last time. No threats, no demands, just reality. This company survives because it adapts, she says. Tommy answers quietly. It survives because people protect it. By the end of the day, the oil keeps flowing. No victory speeches, no clean endings. Just a fragile balance holding for now. MTech didn't conquer the basin. It didn't lose it either. What it did was learn the cost of unchecked hunger. And what Tommy learned is simpler. Power means nothing if you stand alone when it turns on you. As the sun sets, family gathers where it always does. Not celebrating, just together. Talking, watching the horizon glow from distant flare stacks. The future is still uncertain. The threats aren't gone. They've just pulled back into the shadows. And in West Texas, shadows don't mean safety. They mean patience. Landman Season 3 doesn't promise peace. It promises consequence. Dominance comes at a price. Loyalty gets tested. And every move forward risks dragging something dark up from below the surface. If you're ready to see how far this empire can stretch before it snaps, you're in the right place. If you felt the tension, hit like. If you're locked in for what comes next, subscribe. And tell me in the comments who you think makes it out clean. Because in this world, somebody always pays.